you have got the opposite of a captive audience. You've got what I call it, an ejector seat audience who are there by like a cat's whisker.
Welcome to the Evolvepreneur AI Advantage Show, and I'm your host, Richard Wray. My mission is to help entrepreneurs understand AI and use it to their advantage. Join me today where we dig deep with our guest and get you the best concepts and strategies. Today's special guest is Peter Bray. Peter is a former stage actor who turned a side hustle into a successful business. He states that by using stories in the right way, sales turn into an honest conversation to qualify and help people make the best decision for them without pushy sales tactics. Today we're talking about how to use AI to master storytelling and create real human connection. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Richard. It's an absolute pleasure to be on.
Great to have you here, Peter. And as I ask all my guests, where in the world are you?
I'm in Leamington Spa at the moment, which is actually in Shakespeare country, Warwickshire, in England.
Quite literally the middle of the country.
Quite literally the middle of the country.
A beautiful place, beautiful place. So let's get into it. You've obviously had quite a diverse career then. So tell us a little bit about the acting side of it and how your side hustle became what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I was an actor for 14 years, stage mostly, did a lot of Shakespeare somehow. I wanted to be in action movies, but I ended up playing Titania, Queen of the Fairies as one of my first acting jobs. And
slight difference there.
A bit of a difference. It's a bit of a departure from my intended pathway, but such as how...
Very traditional in some ways. Very traditional.
Very traditional.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was with the Lord Chamberlain's Men, so it was a very traditional 7 guys, all male.
Oh, so really back to the days of men playing all the parts,
Men playing all the parts, no women.
Wow, okay.
No jobs for women. That was my first interaction with the British theatre scene. But it started an amazing creative career that unfortunately also left me penniless because even though I was doing quite well as an actor, stage doesn't pay you very well.
It is relative,
side
isn't it?
hustle. Yeah, it's all relative. So I needed something on the side. And I tried voiceover, and it was fine, but you need everything to be silent around you, and that did my head in after a very short amount of time. So the next step was, well, who's writing these scripts for the voiceovers that I'm doing, because they're pretty rubbish. And I stepped into the world of copywriting and marketing, and that's when it all kicked off. But it took a while before the two things really came together, and the dots were joined about stories, marketing, human connection.
And do you think your acting past and the sort of the skills that you developed there have helped you understand how to write things and how it relates to the people who are actually delivering the lines?
Yeah, massively. Absolutely. I think that the instinct you get as a storyteller by craft is a lot of it is the same as what goes into marketing. Is you've got an audience, you need to capture their attention. You need to keep their attention. You need to deepen the relationship with that audience and get them to the place that you want to. You want to transport them from A to B and bring them into the fictive dream, the kind of the world that you're creating and inviting them to step into. And you want them to be excited to step into that world. That's I think where the real bridge happens, which is exciting. As an actor, you're inside stories, you're living them very viscerally from the inside, in front of, for theatre, hundreds of people, thousands of people live a night, and you can feel whether you've got them, whether you've not quite got them, if they're fidgeting, if they're coughing, I'm losing them here, need to do something. And you grow an instinct, you grow a muscle for listening to an audience and for understanding what's going to grab their attention, what's going to pull them in, what you need to change in terms of pace, structure, character, spectacle, novelty, giving silence, all of that stuff, twists, turns, and you get to understand the structure of stories from the inside. I will say that that's actually missing one key piece of the puzzle that you need to add. Even so, you can be a great storyteller, but not get anywhere as a marketer if you don't understand the key differences. And one of the key missing pieces of the puzzle for me that I had to learn the skill set of marketing for was how do you... So with a theatre, it's a dark room. Everyone buys a ticket in advance. There's this pre-contract that they're going to come and they're going to pay attention for a couple of hours.
Theoretically, they want to be there.
Theoretically, they want to be there, and they all go in, and then everyone shuts the doors, and they can't walk out. And that is the opposite of what the kind of market is at the moment, almost everywhere, which is you have got the opposite of a captive audience. You've got what I call it an ejector seat audience who are there by like a cat's whisker, and they've got a very sensitive ejector button that is about to hurl them out of your world and into another seat, into another theater, and they'll watch that for 5 seconds and then hit eject again, and they're just zipping, bouncing off different content, whatever channel it is, email, podcast. People are seconds away from just hitting no, next, swipe. So that's a real skill set that you have to master, whatever kind of storyteller you are, whatever discipline you come to marketing from. That has become more so than ever, with more competition than ever. If you don't have that piece of the puzzle, you're dead in the water.
So it sounds like there's a big difference here from the theatre world, or maybe a movie or a TV show. In fact, not so much the TV show, I'd argue, but you've gone into an environment, and you have theoretically paid your money, you plan to be there, and you will go, and it's very rare that people will actually walk out. Whereas, as you say, when it comes to this sort of style of work that we're talking about today, you can lose them in a fraction of a second. You're not guaranteed to keep them in any way or form.
Absolutely, yeah. And so one of the things that I think you do about that is that you get good at hooking attention and keeping it. But a lot of people are working really hard to get attention. They know that they're like, yeah, sure, the marketplace is crowded. We're doing loads of stuff. We're throwing loads of things at that. We've got all the hooks, all the intrigue, all the curiosity, really great value stuff, so people trust that we've got something to say whenever we turn up, whether it's by people on our email list, whether it's people on socials, whether it's in our blog, video content, whatever the platform. We work really hard to get attention. And that's great. That's part of the puzzle that I'm saying. That's part of the skill set that you need to get, is that ability to grab attention in a way that's authentic and real and creates genuine, introduction into a real world. Then the other part of that is that you can move the goalposts, because just because you work very hard on one platform doesn't mean you have to stay on that platform and keep working just as hard. You can filter a proportion of the attention that you get onto a channel that's much easier and much better and much more stable for a business. I mean, email is the best channel. I mean, everyone knows that. It's a huge ROI channel, marketing channel. So if you can get from every place that you're getting them working really, really, really hard to get that initial attention, if you can invite people like Alice in Wonderland down a rabbit hole where they glimpse the whole world that they want to be a part of and are excited to jump into and head down an adventure with you into your world, which is your email list, then you can actually have a much better chance at a long-term relationship where you're not living and dying by the algorithms of platforms, ad algorithms, all of that stuff. You're able to keep a portion of what you're working very hard to get, which is attention at the end of the day.
So when it comes to this attention, obviously people are bombarded with messages, and we've got more visual and sound-based stimulation than we've ever had in our entire lives. There's that level of choice anxiety that people will undoubtedly experience. How do you, and maybe this is how you're using AI, how do you use your techniques to break through that choice anxiety layer?
Yeah, so that is exactly right. This is where AI can be incredibly helpful on lots of different levels. So you can use AI to learn how to create really great hooks. Mm-hmm. You can come and provide it substance, and you can train AI very quickly on different frameworks for how can I come up with a bunch of hooks based on what I'm going to give you that will be excellent hooks to get attention, and that will get the initial attention and intrigue people and get them to commit. I like the way that you're talking about the choice paralysis, because the abundance of information and options. I can't remember what the last statistic I heard was, but we're exposed to something like 5,000 marketing messages a day. It's probably much more.
I'm surprised it's that low.
I know. I'm sure. I think that's actually a few years out of date. Mm-hmm. It must be gazillions of marketing messages a day, and it's crushing. You can go in all directions simultaneously and get absolutely nowhere. So the job of that initial hook, that initial thing, the mechanism that you use to grab someone's attention and say, hey, it's here. What you're looking for, it's here. Your job is to then sell the person to commit their attention for a slightly longer period of time. One of the ways that I love doing that most, and AI, again, incredibly powerful if you leverage it for this, is things like educational email courses. So you can get people to commit to learning how to get the outcome that they really desire. So you sell them on sacrificing other options for the short term to commit to this one method that's going to be really powerful and help them get what they want or solve the problem that they want to solve.
So it sounds like there's some very tried and tested marketing sales techniques in there, but bolstered, enhanced by the use of AI. Do you find that you're using AI to dive into the psychology of how to approach people?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's extraordinary prompts. So you can teach AI and then tell it to be a master of what you've just taught it. Mm-hmm. And it comes out with stuff that's fairly sophisticated. You absolutely can't publish it as it prints it. That's not a thing. It's not there yet. Maybe ChatGPT 5, maybe, but it's not there right now. But what's amazing about it is that it's like having a junior copywriter or marketing assistant who is amazing at research and picking things up very quickly and very confident at giving everything a go. And what that means, the outcome for you, is that you never have to do the very energy draining front end research, ideation, honing down, okay, what direction am I going to point this in? You basically never have to look at a blank page again, ever. You can start with always a very healthy springboard of, oh, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. And even if you don't do any of those, it's so much easier on the gray matter, for me anyway. Maybe I'm just lazy, but it's so much easier for me to look at a bunch of stuff that is not what it is and then go, now I can see what it might be as a result of seeing all of the things that, with a couple of, fairly lazy steps, I've got something giving quite intelligent first draft answers that will be, between 80% of the way there or 50% of the way. But 50% is way better than a flashing cursor on a blank Google Docs page for me.
So this is very interesting. So it does sound to me like you are making sure that you put that human spark on top of something that is created, but you started the process rolling in the first place. The AI, be it ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot or whatever it might be, to get that base, sparking your grey matter, you add the finesse, and that's what goes to market.
Yeah, that's a pretty great map for it, and it's amazing how much of the heavy lifting just those parts of the process do. And I'm under no illusion that that's all it's going to do for long. Already so I really like the Hemingway app, and their beta testing and AI. So I don't know if you heard of Hemingway's been around for ages, and it's a tool that helps you write like Hemingway.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, write like Hemingway. It helps you, yeah, without the alcohol, and it kind of shows you how to make your writing clearer, more impactful. It tells you words that are softening and blurring what you're writing, shows you complex sentences that are too complex, how to make them simpler. And it's always been really powerful. It's been around for years and years and years. Yeah. But what they've done is they've added AI, where now instead of it just showing you what's not right yet, which is what it used to do, you can just click sentences and it will rewrite it for you. And then and it will fix the problems basically with your writing. So it's actually, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And, that's another piece of that, the end-to-end value chain of creating marketing assets in whatever form that is. It's got the ideation that a lot of people already know about, but it's coming in at the last piece of the puzzle as well to help. I've now started in my workflow putting it back in at the end of the process to go, okay, I've polished what you made, but now can you polish what I polished? I don't know.
So there's an iterative process here. This is an evolution of what you were doing before, but using AI, as you say, kind of a very smart junior copywriter, maybe bounce ideas around with, and try things out that maybe would have taken a huge amount of time before, but now you can just go bang, 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 and put it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can then say, okay, can you now be my editor as well, and get it to do the final polish, or at least suggest the final edits.
So you're essentially creating a whole team around you.
Yeah,
virtual
that's a great way
team members. Yeah.
Yeah, for pennies on the dollar.
Well, this is very, very good. So tell me though, when you're getting all this information back, I've mentioned very early on about choice anxiety. How do you stop yourself running into choice anxiety if these systems are saying to you, well, we could do this and we could do that?
Yeah, I find that it's usually not a problem, in that if I tell it to give me 10 options, usually there's one standout. It usually follows some kind of Pareto principle, some law of distribution where, the good ideas are usually in a minority and are very clearly stand out above the rest. If that's not the case, then that's a wonderful problem to have, because you can take it all and ask it to meld to, or you can save one for later, because there's always going to be more stuff to have. So you can just put one on file in a Notion board or Google Sheet where you collect resources that are for later. Which is, what do writers call that? A second brain. You build a second brain where you collect a communal book where you store.
Almost like the mind palace technique of you've got things stored away somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, you build a living resource, a growing resource full of ideas stored for later. So that's another way of never having to deal with a blank page again. It's also the ideal fodder to then feed into AI. So you can tell AI that you want it to study your writing style. So what it comes out with is in your voice already. So you can feed it polished stuff. But you can also feed it these raw fragments of ideas that it might have had previously, and you use that as the kind of raw material that it helps to transform into really well-told stories by the end result.
So going back to the Hemingway approach, if you've got a particular writing style that you may be known for, AI can mimic that and repeat it back to you, but with completely new content.
Yeah, yeah, you can actually get it to do that. It's not perfect, but it's really quite something when when you see it. And this works great if you have a very clear style. You can put together, however many, 3 long articles or 10 short things, or you can talk to it. You can with the mobile app with ChatGPT-4, for example, you can just click the microphone button and read to it from material that you want it to be able to mimic, or you can think out loud and get it to collect your voice in a very literal sense, like actually how you talk. And you can train it. You can give it prompts that get it to reflect back to you a very, very sophisticated, in-depth breakdown of your voice. You can get it to articulate that to you and store it for reference when you want that as an output.
You've mentioned something there that I found very few people seem to reference, which is the actual ability to speak to the AI and get feedback. When is that crossover point when you start to actually talk to it like it's a person?
Oh Lord, I mean, I'm about to share a bit too much, but I'm a big fan of science-based personal development.
Mm-hmm.
So the microphone is something that I think is so under discussed, like you say, about, many of these apps. My go-to is at the moment ChatGPT-4.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have conversations. I've used it to practice for podcasts. I've fed it interview questions and said, I would like you to role play as a podcast interviewer, so that I can, practice and I read what it says, and then I hit the microphone and I talk back as if it's a human being. I feel slightly ashamed saying this. I don't know why. I should own it. I'm feeling slightly embarrassed, but I find it unbelievably helpful. I tell it to, I feed it little bite-sized coaching scripts and say, here's a methodology of this kind of business coaching to help uncover,
mm-hmm.
Your values or your goal, or uncover what's the hidden friction points. You can feed it these sophisticated coaching methodologies, and then talk out loud to it. I go for long walks. I walk for about an hour, and I talk as if I'm going through a coaching session, and it's absolutely transformational. I did it with Tim Ferriss's streamlining, Tim Ferriss's fear setting. And it's completely transformational, that microphone button, and talking to it and asking it to interview you to draw out your most powerful stories that can be used to create a world that will excite your customers to want to come and be a part of. And you can do that with your literal voice instead of having to translate it into typing on your keyboard, if that is something that you prefer. It really provides an extra something for me personally.
Well, I can see the benefit of somebody who maybe isn't overly familiar with using a keyboard or doesn't have very good writing skills. Then they can just talk to it. This could be a very positive thing for them.
Yeah, it's really something. Yeah, I think it's incredibly, bizarrely under discussed. Most people are just talking about copying and pasting big prompts and then trying to get it to do literally everything, and then you type on a computer to interact with it. For me, by far the most powerful way of using AI at the moment is as a tool to help me think by talking out loud. I mean, that might be, in terms of Myers-Briggs Jungian functions, I'm an extroverted thinker. I like doing my thinking out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a regular writing, journaling practice, and I think that's part of it. But this whole ability to have AI almost listen to you actively and then reflect in the language that it uses to take you through a process to help explore your thinking, to me, that's just about a miracle.
Does sound very cool. Just changing the topic ever so slightly, you've given us some great tips, some great approaches of how you do work. How have you combated maybe clients or new clients potentially saying, oh, well, I can now just do what you do with the AI? Have you run into that much?
I haven't, because you still have to do a lot more work by doing that than if you just literally turn up to a meeting with me and say, hey, Pete, how's it going? And then wait. And I ask you questions and you answer the questions. And then a few days later, however long later, all of the work is done. You've got all of the drafts and they're ready to print, waiting for your feedback. The interaction with AI, thankfully, is still a lot more work than just doing that. Turning up to a meeting with a ghostwriter like me, who can copyright a whole bunch of stuff literally just from an interview, sometimes not even needing an interview, just dive into your existing content and make stuff from that. There's still, fortunately, a lot of work that I have to do, even with AI, lightening my load to get there. You have to think through what do I ask AI to do, and what's the best way of asking that? What do I do when it doesn't do quite what I want me to do? And then how do I take it from that output into something that's really ready to go?
So would it be fair to say then that you're using AI to allow you to really focus on the bits that are truly human? It takes away the judge work, and the work that's coming out of you is even better than it has been before, because you don't have to do that other stuff.
Yeah, it lets me focus on what's truly human. That's a great way of putting it. I couldn't put it a bit better myself. You take the real interaction, the real creative work, the real exploratory work, the strategy work, and then you feed all of that into AI, and then you polish what it puts out. And that's a huge gap that it fills there. It's a huge amount of like heavy lifting that it does for you. And you're right, it's the non-human work. It's the initial moving around and shaping and kind of more admin stuff, or just exploratory ideation based on your strategy and your inputs.
We mentioned earlier on using AI like a junior copywriter. But when it comes to real junior copywriters, how would you suggest making sure that they still develop a skill set rather than just instantly turning to AI and thinking that'll do my job for me and I'll look great?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think it's a big temptation at the moment for everyone to just think, oh yeah, great.
Get overused. Yeah. Hey, it's a big solution to everything. Yeah.
And the problem with, so the thing that you need to do is understand as someone who's just learning this stuff to start off with, is understand that writing is the act of thinking, and I think it's quite a deeply ritualistic, spiritual act, really, not to be too heavy about it, but it's the act of progressing the act of thinking. So really good, honest writing is going to have an element of genuine discovery to it if it's going to be really gripping, because you're taking ideas and you're moving that collection of current ideas that's in the collective consciousness of society and culture at the moment, and you're collecting it and you're organizing it and you're walking that tightrope to just take it that little bit further. It's your attempt to advance those ideas a little bit. AI aggregates what already exists. I don't personally believe it's currently possible of genuine original thought or progressing ideas. It can re-articulate things. It can be very fresh and creative with how it finds different angles, and that's it's close to what I'm saying, but as someone, you need to understand that is the core function of writing. It's not just to rehash, it's to also move the ball down the field a little bit as well. And that's something that takes skill, instinct, experience, craft, and especially with storytelling, it takes real craft there. There's a lot of craft that needs to be understood with storytelling, and you also still need that human element. So what one of the grandfathers of storytelling, Robert McKee, talks about is that when you're creating a story, you write the bullet points and then you go and tell it to someone, and then you see their reaction, and that's a little litmus test, because you need to understand how real humans are going to respond to stories. So yeah, it can do a lot, but you can't quite put your feet up and let it do everything at the moment. Not to say that we won't get there at some point.
At least I'd like to try at some point. I mean, to quote some old British marketing, it might look the same, but it doesn't taste the same. One of bet.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if there's one piece of advice that people should take away from our conversation today, Peter, what would it be?
Well, I'd say find the world that you can create with your stories that's going to excite readers to step in and be a part of. Because if you can do that, then it's really going to take care of all of the selling for you. You don't need to... What used to put me off before I really discovered what marketing was about marketing was the whole like snake oil salesman, pushy. I hate it. It put me off interacting with marketing in any way. And when I realized that actually you can do way better by the opposite of that, by being super honest, by really being more yourself than anything, by creating a unique world that people go, oh my gosh, I found it. Yes. Let me in. I've had people who say, I just buy stuff from you because I want to, because I love your emails, because I just love the whole thing. I love the whole thing. I want to be part of it. I just love it. And, find those stories, find and tell those stories to your audience. That's the piece of advice.
Great advice. Peter, where can people find you? And what's the big project or website that you'd like them to look at?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Peter Bray, and I am currently working on something very exciting that I'm going to time with the release of this episode. So you can be one of the first people to come and have a look, which is a free course to help you use AI to find stories that excite your audience and use a mechanism to help get them out of that very busy, noisy channel and onto your email list, so you can nurture them into being a super fan and have far better relationship, far deeper relationship, where they're excited to just buy stuff from you because they love being there. And that you can find that at peterbraymarketing.com.
Sounds like a great course and a great way forward. And thank you for sharing that with us, Peter.
A pleasure. Thank you.
It's been great having you here and to mangle some Shakespeare. We are but shadows, but sadly it is time to go.
Oh, fantastic. We ended with a Shakespeare quote. Thanks, Richard. It's a pleasure to be on here.
Well, that's a wrap on another awesome guest episode for the Evolvepreneur AI Advantage Show. Just before you go, if you like this episode, we would be very grateful for a 5-star review. Please also consider recommending the show to a friend or two. Make sure you subscribe for future episodes at aiadvantage.show right now. Until next time, I'm Richard Wray, and if you're an entrepreneur, get the AI advantage today.